Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel if you're one of the few who've watched a video from me, or welcome if you're new. Today's video, I'm going to keep it short and simple. I wanted to talk about the books that I read in the month of January. There were 4 of them. One of them was a reread. 2 of them were disappointing books and 2 of them were books that I really liked. Obviously, the reread I liked. That's why I reread it. So we're going to start with just jump right in it. The first book that I read was a disappointing read. It's actually a fairly new sci-fi that's getting a lot of buzz, recently translated into English, and that is The Three-Body Problem by a Chinese author's name that I don't want to butcher, quite honestly. This is a sci-fi sort of first contact with aliens, spoiler alert, I guess, book, and like part of it, the part that I liked was the three body problem itself, which is the idea of this world with 3 suns, and how that can cause a lot of issues. I enjoyed that aspect of it. Everything else about this book I really didn't enjoy. I'm going to put it down now. Everything else about it I really did not enjoy. I just felt the characters were flat. The story was flat. The pacing was off because it was all in flashbacks mostly. It was mostly in flashbacks or like exposition. I didn't enjoy it. And I don't know if that's the translation because it was translated or if that's just the way the story was told, and I wasn't connecting with it. I didn't connect with anything beyond that scientific problem of the 3 body problem. Like that was really the only thing that interested me, and it wasn't a big enough part of the story. And then another thing, like even the aliens feel like humans. Like we do get a little, again, spoiler alert, we do, but I'm not going to recommend anybody read this because I really didn't enjoy it. There's the aliens were, even there's this little spurt with the aliens, and even they were like very much human, and it really annoyed me that even she couldn't even write, or he, I'm not really sure if a male or female author, like couldn't even write the aliens any different. They were just as wooden as the human characters. So I gave it, I believe, 1 out of 5 stars, maybe 2 out of 5, because I really did enjoy that scientific aspect of it. But other than that, I really just didn't enjoy this novel. Yeah. And then after reading that, I was just in such a foul mood with reading that I wanted to read something that I knew I was going to like. So I decided to do a reread. I reread the trashy romance novel that I've loved probably for about 10 years now. I don't know why. And that's The Irish Devil by Donna Fletcher. It follows the Irish Devil. He's Lord Eric of Shankill. He is set to marry one of 3 daughters from like a neighboring lord. When he gets there to choose a daughter, he finds out that there's actually a 4th daughter that's a healer on the lands, and he had already had an interest in her. So obviously he marries her, and then their marriage is sort of conflicted with this issue of like, hey, what was happening that you were a secret daughter, you know? It was, I really always enjoy it. I really like the heroine, because she's very much, she has a lot of things happen to her, which is another thing, like the backstory for her, I thought was actually really interesting, and, you know, why she was, like how her home life and why it was the way it was. But she sort of created her own path. She became a healer off of the manor, you know, it was off of the manner of her father and her stepmother. I really enjoyed it. It was really, I mean, obviously it has some of those tropes that books of this time period have, like, you know, of the time period where he could choose from 3 wives, like just daughters, you know, he could just choose his wife from 3 daughters, you know, when they really didn't have any say whatsoever. Um, I really enjoyed it. It's really trashy. It's really fun. For what it is, I give it a 5 out of 5. But if we're grading it on the actual like literary merit, it's probably like 3. But this is a guilty pleasure read for me. I've always really enjoyed it. I don't know why. So just after the 3 body problem, I wanted something that I knew I was gonna like, and that was gonna be a quick read and kind of get me back in the mood of reading. That did exactly what it was supposed to do. The next book that I read is actually the first book in a trilogy that is completed. It's an older trilogy. I'm actually not sure when it was written. Doesn't matter. Anyways, it's The Magician's Guild by Trudy Canavan. And this is the first book in the Black Magician trilogy. And this first book follows this city where magicians are kind of the ruling class. to an extent. They still have like a king and they have like high lords and whatever, but the magicians are essentially the basis of this society, of this city. And they find there's an incident where they find out that there's essentially a rogue magician, a young girl who has powers, who's living outside of the Magician's Guild. So the book is essentially becomes a manhunt for this young girl to get her under there, to either find out who she is, where she came from, if she's a rogue magician or if she's just someone who's realizing her powers, and whether they need to bind her powers or not, because she's from the lower class and the magicians are always of the higher class, the nobles. So they're deciding what they need to do with this essentially peasant girl with the powers of a magician. This first one was really interesting because it sort of bounces between the Magician's Guild, everything they're having to deal with trying to find her, and then we cut to her end where she's trying to stay out of their grasp. I really enjoyed this book. Again, this is the first one. I do have the other two in the trilogy. The second one being The Novice, and the third one being The High Lord, which is on right here. So I do want to read that. I'm gonna have my February TBR pretty soon, and spoiler alert, the second one's going to be on there. Anyways, the final book that I read in the month of January is sci-fi classic, and I am by a well-known author, and I wanted to read it because I've been trying to get through more classics here recently, trying to just incorporate at least one into my reading list every month. I've done decently with it so far. I read Metamorphosis last month, and this month I picked up 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. This wasn't a disappointing pile. Not as much as the Three Body Problem, because that only got a 1 out of 5. This got 3 out of 5 stars for me. If you don't know, this book follows sort of this man who's on this expedition. It follows this professor who's on this expedition with a crew trying to find this ginormous creature that's been wreaking a lot of havoc in the oceans of the world. And it's really fast, really big. They're not really sure where it is. They have an idea of what it is, but he's on the expedition to find this and to kill it. They do find it, and in a tussle, he gets thrown overboard. And as he's sinking to the bottom of the ocean, he finds out that this creature isn't really a creature. It's a submarine. It's a ship. It's made of metal. It's got people. It's got a crew. It's got a captain. That's Captain Nemo, who takes him prisoner. And the entire book is really just his adventures as he goes 20,000 leagues across the sea, is what the name of this book should be called, because they don't go 20,000 leagues deep. They just swoop. They don't swim. What does a submarine do? They're going 20,000 leagues across the sea. It turned into kind of like a travelogue. It kind of interspersed between being a travelogue of them seeing all these wonderful, fantastic things, which is really interesting. That concept is amazing, but it just gets so boring and nothing really happens, and it tries to interject like these random little things to make it interesting or to give it some kind of action, and I wasn't here for it. I really didn't enjoy it. I'm happy I read it because it's a classic, but anyways, that's it. That concludes my video. Please subscribe if you want to see more. Have a good day.